Welcome back to the channel, guys. Leon Angus. Today, I've actually got a very special guest from Ezoic. He's the Chief Marketing Officer at Ezoic. Many of you may know what Ezoic is. Some of you may not, but today we're going to clear that all up. So, Tyler, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So, thanks for the intro. I am our CMO here at Ezoic, and I'm like a lot of people right now. I'm operating from my home office because we're recording this during the global pandemic. So, I've been in this space for a very long time. I come from the startup world. I built businesses early on search traffic and working on the web. And at the time when I was going through school, everybody was saying that's not real marketing. And I was sure that it was. And since that time, I have exited several businesses. And at the same time, I've also become a publisher along the way as well. So Ezoic is the perfect marriage between all the different lives that I've lived. Yeah, I really enjoy my role with Ezoic primarily because so much of what we do in marketing here is really around the idea of education and providing people info. And it's been a lot of fun throughout I would say the last couple of years, specifically just helping publishers.
When abouts did you actually join up with Ezoic? Like, how long have you been with them?
Since 2015, I believe. I've been working with us, and we were a small business then. The company was actually founded in 2010, 2011 in stealth mode. Our founder, Dwayne LaFleur, actually, for those that remember the days of Facebook and the game Farmville, where you would exchange real currency for digital currency. He was the mastermind behind a lot of that and exited that business. And one of the things he learned along the way was that many people in advertising were focused on the wrong problem. And publishers were focused on the idea that ad demand, where the ads come from, so to speak, was the most important thing. And realistically, what he found out along the way was it's really the user experience that matters the most, because that's how advertisers adjust things over time. And so he figured out that basically testing locations and sizes and density and things like that played a larger role in the revenue that a publisher would earn, whether it's a developer or a website. And so he set off to create the technology, and they ended up buying over 400 or 500 websites.
Oh, wow.
Around that time period. Yeah, that was originally the business model. And then slowly but surely they decided that the technology was so powerful it would become a platform. And that's about the time that I joined in 2015, when the platform really matured.
And just for the benefit of the audience that may be particularly watching this, we have obviously a varying range of people with experience and knowledge. So in a basic context, layman term, as I'll say, what does Ezoic do? What exactly do you guys do?
Yeah, I would say that's probably one of the hardest parts about my job, because we do a lot. And I think that means it's a good thing because we provide a lot of value. But I think sometimes one of the hardest parts is being able to demonstrate or show publishers how to get the most amount of value out of what we offer. And so we are a technology. So, you hear the term platform a lot. The idea being that you can use Ezoic as a publisher to do a lot of different things. Primarily, I would say 99% of our customers use us for monetization purposes to test, display, increase revenue from ads on their website. And but the idea of it being a platform is that digital publishing has really gotten significantly more complex over the last decade. And Ezoic is really designed to be a tool that allows anyone to be able to come in and then manage as hands-on or as hands-off as they would like to be the things that are very complex and also growingly important in terms of being able to use data to optimize and perform certain tasks well, whether it's SEO, monetization, site speed, putting the tools to be able to do things at an expert level in the hands of people that maybe are not an expert in website infrastructure or ad ops or something like that.
And in your own words, a lot of people don't actually understand like how ads work in regards to the ad exchange, so on and so forth. So just if you could put it into context for those people who may be at the beginning of their cycle of how Ezoic work with Google to help them to monetize their website.
Sure. So I'm gonna give a quick overview of just internet advertising historically in about 1 minute, and then that'll help kind of like link things together, because I think it's important. I find that most people are fairly unaware. So the word ad network really stems from one basic principle where you have a party that basically works with both advertisers and publishers. Advertisers want to get their ads out. Publishers want to be able to make money from their content. So that relationship has existed for decades or centuries, really. I mean, you go back to the print days, even back in the 1800s. And so advertisers and publishers, as things have grown and scaled, it's very difficult for them to work together directly to reach the scale that certain campaigns need. So ad networks live as an intermediary there. And then over time, you find that not all ad networks maybe have the same relationships. And in some cases, maybe some are taking more off the top than others. So you start having lots and lots of ad networks. And over time, what happens is publishers and advertisers both don't know which ones to work with. So these ideas of exchanges were created. So an example of an ad network is Google Adsense. It's the largest ad network in the world. A good example of an ad exchange is Google's ad exchange. So an ad exchange is basically a environment much like a Wall Street trading floor where you have lots and lots of ad networks competing all in real time that are bidding on space on a publisher's website for ads. So you have advertisers running campaigns, you have publishers over here, and then you've got ad networks that still do work with advertisers and publishers, but largely you've got these major exchanges, and that is where a lot of publishers are getting the majority of the revenue is by working with. Google's ad exchange really is the biggest one. And then outside of that, you get into all these things like header bidders and niche ad networks like native ad networks. So when I say niche, I mean basically they're serving a different type of ad completely. You know, the people also read types of ads and stuff like that. So normally the sophisticated ad setup will include access to multiple exchanges with separate auctions they call header bidding. I won't get into it. Also access to other ad networks that maybe include things like native ads. And Ezoic actually takes all of that sophisticated setup and provides it to our customers right out of the box. So you don't have to sign up for thousands of ad networks. You don't have to try to get approval for Google's ad exchange, which is really tough. So we provide all of that alongside all the machine learning and testing that the platform was really designed for.
Brilliant. So for those of you who were unsure about how ads work, I'm sure that will give you a real in-depth understanding from the bottom up of exactly what Ezoic does and how advertising works as a whole across the internet as well. All right. So a lot of people have an issue with page speed in particular. One of the elements of doubt that I see popping up when it comes to placing Ezoic ads on their site. How do they go about that? How does this have an impact on a publisher's website when they actually apply Ezoic to their website?
So I'll correct one thing, which is applying any advertising to a website. So Ezoic will actually display ads and make sites much faster in almost every case compared to sites that are displaying ads without Ezoic. And that and the caveat there is you have to have everything set up exactly as it should be. I actually just did a webinar that's available to any Ezoic customer, or realistically, if you'd like to use Ezoic, I think it's available on our YouTube channel on a playlist called Ezoic Education. And there's a lot of caveats when you set up something like Ezoic in terms of getting it specific to your site to make sure that all the different things that we provide work in synergy with your site. One of the things that we do by default is make sure that we don't want to break anything or circumvent anything that you've built into your site on purpose. And so for that reason, oftentimes some of the better optimizations around speed that we make, you may have to make adjustments to either Ezoic or something on your side to make sure that things are as fast as possible. That said, the BBC did a study last year of over 1 million websites. And they found that the number one cause of page slowdown was advertising. Funny enough, I ran that article through one of Google's PageSpeed tools, and that article got a 16 out of 100. And the reason being is because it was displaying ads on it. And the BBC is not an Ezoic customer, not yet at least. And one of the things that I find really interesting about it is that Google is looking at speed in a lot of different ways now. They've got Web Core Vitals, a bunch of new metrics that they've made up and added to Search Console. They have their PageSpeed Insights and Lighthouse reports. And then in Google Analytics, they still report on average page load time. And the thing is average page load time is the time it takes for a page to become fully loaded in the browser for a user.
Yeah.
And that means that it's not accounting for things like lazy loading, deferment, asynchronous loading of advertising, things that load only upon scroll when visitors at the bottom of a page or something like that. And what that means is that all the optimizations that they recommend for all their new metrics actually make average page load time longer. So speed becomes this thing that is a moving target for publishers in a lot of different respects. And ultimately, they need to focus on the user. And Ezoic has a lot of different configurations and settings that will allow publishers to optimize around whatever it is they would like in terms of speed. But we really recommend the user. And so one of the things that we've built in is we provide a free CDN for our customers. If you're integrated with us, you can enable caching through us that allows you to use a CDN that's enabled specifically for ads. Will allow you to implement things like lazy loading and async loading on ads and other content, so that basically your site can load as fast as it possibly can when displaying ads. And we even built a tool that publishers are spending awful amounts of money on plugins and other things that basically were not speeding up their sites to near the degree to what they were paying for. They're paying for image compression and resizing. And basically, we decided to build a tool that was more inexpensive than all those other tools combined and guarantee an 80+ score, even when sites show ads. And it's not easy to do. I mean, you'll be lucky if you ever find another site on the web that's not using Ezoic. I mean, it's almost impossible to find a site on the web with an 80+ score on mobile in any of Google's tools that shows ads. And we have a tool that will allow publishers to do it. It's paid. It's in addition to all the stuff that we provide for free around speed, but it is something that we've provided publishers, and we offer a free trial primarily because what we've seen over time is that speed is not the important metric that people think that it is in terms of SEO. I kind of dive into that a little bit yesterday on my webinar, and I won't go into it here, but I will say that that's the reason we want to give publishers the ability to test it, is because if it makes a big impact for you, then go for it. But if not, it's not something we think you should be spending lots of your time and resources on.
Brilliant. And one of the best things that I actually had as an experience when I signed up and became a part of Ezoic was the actual customer service that was provided to me. I was assigned an account manager and everything was taken through quite smoothly. For someone who wants to set up, what is the benefit of them actually, signing up with Ezoic? Because I want you to talk them through the actual setup process, because a lot of people are intimidated by the potential effort that they might have to put in. And I know that you guys have actually removed that effort away from them having to put that in. So can you just kind of elaborate on that a little bit better for me?
Sure. So one of the things that I think is complex and difficult for publishers, and I would say it's become growingly so, is, I talked about kind of the advertising ecosystem earlier, where you got ad exchanges, ad networks. Like, that's a lot to manage. Big enterprise companies will hire fleets of people to do a lot of these things. And even now you're seeing more and more automation involved there. And so for a publisher, it's like, where do I start? If I want to make a fair amount of money from my content, do I need to hire this person? Do I need to set this stuff up? Maybe I'll just outsource it. The problem is you really need to have someone that has your best interests in mind. That's why these enterprises don't outsource it. They hire in-house because they need somebody that has their best interests in mind, both long-term and short-term. And we think the best way to handle that is to be able to manage it yourself, to have control, but to make it easy. And so when you sign up with Ezoic, we have some basic quality guidelines that we require publishers to meet. And it's mainly around advertising policy guidelines, things like having unique content and also not having objectionable content that's quote unquote brand safe. It's just primarily what advertisers will bid on. And outside of that, we want to give publishers the ability to sign up and then integrate with the platform in a way that allows us to basically inject and provide all the different things that we provide publishers in terms of analytics, speed, SEO, and ad serving at the fastest and most dynamic way that we possibly can. So when we say we use machine learning for testing and all that kind of stuff, that is a big portion of ad ops. That is what is driving the increases in ad rates and competition. And so that needs to happen at the DNS level. So integration with Ezoic is primarily done in one of two ways that we recommend. And that is
Yeah.
via name service integration. You go to your host or registrar. We'll give you two basically URLs that you can copy, and you just paste them in your host or registrar, and it'll change your name service, and that'll allow us to operate like a CDN, where your traffic can be proxied. You can split test Ezoic because of this. So you can say, is Ezoic really doing what they say they're doing and increasing my revenue? And you can see apples to apples, 50% of your traffic on your site as it is today and 50% on Ezoic. And the other way that you can do that is if you're a Cloudflare user, or if you want to set up a free Cloudflare account, you can also integrate via Cloudflare. So Cloudflare is really easy to set up. And if your Cloudflare site will detect that, and when you go to integrate with Ezoic, it'll be one click, and you'll be able to get integrated through that mechanism as well. And so once you've completed that process, if you want to use Ezoic for monetization, the next step is really, we need to figure out where on your site makes sense to show ads. And realistically, the best way to figure that out is testing. So you may say, I like one up here, I like one over here, but maybe users don't like that. Maybe for one user, it's annoying up there. For another user, it's annoying over here. So that could be causing higher bounce rates, could be causing advertisers to drop their bids over time too, because the users don't stay on the site as long. But what might be even more important is that all ads affect each other. 3 ads on the page might mean advertisers bid lower because the competition isn't very high, and they know that a lower bid might get them on the page. Meanwhile, 2 ads, they might all crank up their bids, and you might make more from 2 ads than 3. But it differs on a per visitor basis, because you might imagine advertisers treat all visitors differently. And so publishers have to do the same thing. And so we ask that publishers use a Chrome extension to basically drag and drop and put ad potential locations on their site. And what will happen is we'll detect those locations on similar pages. So if you put placeholders on a article page, we'll figure that out across the site. And then once you finish that process, if you have any existing ad networks that you work with, like Adsense or anything like that, you can actually link those in. And so if Ezoic doesn't have one of those already in our system, we will automatically use them to compete. And then once you're ready, you can adjust the amount of traffic that you'd like to send to Ezoic for testing. We recommend starting with about 50%. And that way you can see apples to apples, what is Ezoic doing and what is the value of that. And then over time, you'll find that Ezoic is outperforming your original site, usually by a pretty significant degree, and publishers will turn Ezoic up to 100%. And so it's usually a 3-step process. You sign up, you integrate, and then you outfit your site with ad placeholders. And when you're ready, you can start testing and using Ezoic.
So just to clarify, Ezoic don't only actually increase your advertising revenues that you can generate overall for the site, but it also improves user metrics as well at the same time.
And this is proven. So we've studied, last year we looked at 300 plus sites across 300 sites that were using Ezoic almost exclusively. All of them improved all kinds of different points across UX metrics, page views per visit, bounce rate, time on site. These are all the objective ways of looking at UX. And then also revenue along the way. Those 300 sites saw 93% uplift in revenue, 87% uplift in revenue per visitor. And that's important because revenue, if traffic goes up, revenue goes up too, right? So what you want to be able to see is not only revenue and traffic going up, but revenue going up to a greater degree than the traffic. That means you're actually making more money per visitor. And that's an important distinction. And so that is something that we studied, and that's a big part of giving publishers the control. So why not outsource? Why do I set this stuff all up myself? And it's because Ezoic does give you the controls, the ability to not only split test, but you can use settings in Ezoic to optimize more for UX or more for revenue, or our default setting is balance. And it's because the long-term ramifications of advertising or monetizing your site are going to be different for everybody. And so you may have a site where your users are particularly sensitive to ads, and you know this, or you have affiliate offers or something like that, and you say, hey, I want to be very UX focused because I don't want the advertising to take away from the experience or from my other revenue. Or you might say, hey, look, people just come to my site, get the information they want, and they leave. I just want to maximize the amount of money that I can make in that relationship. So you might set it all the way over to revenue focused, but
Yeah.
you want to give those controls to publishers.
And just to actually elaborate on that for anyone watching, it's a very simple process, guys. So when Tyler's actually referring to the tool that does this, it's literally the trip of a switch. You know, it's very simple. It's just moving a slider over. Whether it be for increased revenue or optimized for user experience. It's a very simple process. All right. So what I wanted to also ask is, one of the big questions that a lot of people fire at me is, what is different with Ezoic to Adthrive, Mediavine, and all of the other ad networks out there? What is it that is so different about Ezoic?
So I think this is another really important distinction, because the two parties that you mentioned, there's quite a few of them out there that are similar, and I would say that probably the last few years I've probably heard those names quite a bit. So we don't actually see any of those parties as competitors. I'm sure many publishers probably think that that's the case, but realistically, those parties are actually not ad networks. So remember earlier when I was talking about, the parties that have a relationship with both advertisers and publishers, kind of serving that traditional ad network role. Someone like an Adthrive or a Mediavine would be what I would fall into, like an ad ops shop. So you're basically outsourcing ad ops to a third party in this case. So it's not like they're an ad network. They're not replacing Adsense. The ads that are served on your site from those parties, and most like them, they're going to be served from the exact same places that Ezoic is serving ads. So Google Ad Manager is where the ads are going to come from. The primary place that programmatic ads are going to be filled is Google's Ad Exchange. I looked at a couple sites the other day from multiple different parties. 90+% of the ads that I was seeing on the page were served from Google's Ad Exchange, and then header bidding, and then in some cases native advertising as well. And then all these different ad op shops will include things like PMP deals, which are basically deals that are done directly with advertisers in different niches. And Ezoic provides that as well. It's something we're constantly doing, is going out and finding advertisers that want to advertise in home and gardening sites or baking sites or something like that, and then adding those deals into the demand that runs through our network. So I think one of the biggest things, and probably biggest misconceptions, is that all those parties are different in some way. And I view them all largely as a commodity, meaning they can all pretty much do the same thing for you. And it realistically just comes down to what rep you get there and how they set things up. And realistically, that to me is one of the biggest values of something like Ezoic, is that you don't have to outsource this. You can do it all yourself. And while we do have a sales and service team there to support you and help you out along the way, we're not an outsourced party. We are a technology platform. That's why I say we don't compete. Realistically, if any of those parties wanted to use our technology, we would allow it. We don't need to use our ad demand. That's why we have mediation. You can hook in any ad networks or relationships that you have. If you're a large publisher with your own ad manager or DFP account, you can serve all the ads out of your own DFP. You don't even have to use any Ezoic ads at all. You can use your own ads. And so none of those parties do that because they're using the exact same as we are. And one of the things, largely the exact same. And the thing is with Ezoic, we never lock people into contracts. We always do 30 days free. You can leave at any time. You can split test with anything. And there's the thing that I always emphasize to people about outsourcing ad ops is ask about a contract. If there's a contract, why would somebody try to put you into a contract where you can't leave? There's a reason why. And then also, why would someone not allow you to split test? There's not a practical or pragmatic reason why. There are a lot of made up reasons, but they're not true. And the realistic part is split testing is something that every publisher should have the ability to do, so that you can actually see apples to apples. Traffic on Tuesday versus traffic on Tuesday. Monetizing my site, what was the most effective method? And most of those parties used to allow that using our platform, and now slowly but surely many have stopped doing that. So that is one of the things that has changed quite a bit over the last few years, I'd say. But I used to not ever hear about any of those parties. It was kind of a different thing, but now I hear more and more about those types of things in terms of it being a competitor. But I can tell you internally, we still don't view most of those folks that way.
No, my only reason for that is because obviously for a lot of publishers on the beginning end of the scale, usually obviously look at those as options and think, okay, why should I go with Ezoic over this one, so on and so forth. But just talking about that and not actually, comparing, what are some of the beneficial features that Ezoic offer? Because I do know you have big data analytics, and how does that differ from Google Analytics, and what are the actual benefits of using your analytics dashboard?
I would say big data analytics is probably the thing that seems the most unexciting because I mean Google Analytics is like the gold standard, right? Like
Yeah,
I always think about like how terrible would it be if you had to be like the marketing director or something like that for a
yeah,
company that was like making a Google Analytics competitor. Because
yeah.
it's like I mean, it's really the one of the best analytics applications ever built, and it's the
Yeah,
standard by which all other analytics applications are measured.
yeah,
The biggest thing with Google Analytics is it's not built for publishers. While there are things in there that are specific, you can't really connect revenue to anything, and
yeah,
you can connect AdSense, and if you have a DSP account, you can connect Google Ad Exchange, but you can't connect header bidding and a bunch of other stuff,
yeah,
and it's not seamless. And so one of the big things that we wanted to do with something like big data analytics is make data a little bit more accurate. So Google Analytics has a couple flaws in it that makes the data a little bit less than accurate. We also wanted to be able to build in things that are particularly interesting to publishers, things like author metrics, things like category information, things related to site speed, and other things
yeah,
that publishers are going to be particularly concerned about, and then tie all that to revenue. So
yeah.
if I was to just say, like, here's 3 things inside of big data analytics that I think are really cool, outside of everything else, one is the ability to look at all your authors and see basically what are their average page RPMs,
Brilliant.
how many articles per week do they write, what is the average ROI on what
Yeah,
you pay them over time, being able to basically just look at all that information and be like, wow, I've got certain writers that are writing
yeah,
about things where it's triple what other writers are writing about. You know, also look at things like page length and stuff like that to figure out like how are those things affecting revenue. Another one is categories. So a lot of us will have a site where we may have certain articles on how to, certain
yeah.
articles on news, maybe articles on product reviews.
That's right.
And
Yeah,
you may be interested to look at those different categories and figure out which ones are producing the highest revenue per visitor,
yeah,
revenue per page view, and be able to dive deeper into those things and look at things like bounce rate and other things along those lines.
yeah,
And then the last one that I think is really cool, and this one's a little bit more recent, is you can
yeah,
actually connect Search Console data to big data analytics as well. And you can actually see the value of SEO
yeah,
from the standpoint of you can see what search queries are generating the most revenue. So you might look at a word like John Deere tractor, and
yeah,
you might say, wow, I'm getting 13% of all my revenue from one query. And I can see maybe even you can compare, 1 month versus the next. You can say,
yeah,
look, my ranking position went from 3 to 2, and that resulted in a 15% increase in revenue or a
yeah,
20% increase in revenue. Or maybe I dropped 2 spots and that only dropped my revenue by 1%. So
yeah.
it gives you a good idea of the time and energy that you invest in things like SEO and what that value looks like in reality. So it makes you a much smarter business man or woman in terms
Mhm.
of running this website.
One of the other things is, for me personally, this is one of my questions, is what are the benefits of using Ezoic Premium? Because recently I was made available to sign up to the premium service and I've signed up. I'm making more money, but how is this actually happening? Like what are the actual processes behind that?
Yeah, and so since the beginning of time, because we've got this ecosystem where everything is being done automatically and programmatically now, the holy grail for publishers still is to work directly with the advertisers to cut out all the middlemen. Traditionally, how this has been done and the way that it's still done today is you have to have a sales guy basically go out and sell advertisers your ad space. They
Mm.
go out and the old Mad Men days, they would take them out to a fancy steak dinner, and
Yeah,
you'd get the guys from Kraft together, and
yeah,
you try to explain to them why your website or your publication was going to be the one that delivered their target audience the
yeah,
best. And realistically, there's aspects of it that still operate that way, but it's
Mhm.
the labor costs are very, very high. So you have to think, what is the cost of that salesperson, their commission, all the time and energy that goes into that, and whatever you pay them in terms of salary, or even if you find somebody that's going to do it commission only, or
Yeah.
you can outsource it to a guy that spends so many hours per week. By the time they actually bring that deal in and you subsidize the cost of that experience, do you actually even make more money? In
Yeah.
fact, most publishers that have gone through that experience actually lose money or spend a lot of time trying to get direct advertising deals and ultimately sell like one or two deals and find out it's not really worth their time.
Yeah.
And so what premium is basically we go out and have a team that is constantly working to sell deals to advertisers that fit different site niches. And what
Okay.
happens is when we identify a site that we think can help deliver on some of those campaigns that are being sold, we offer premium to them. And premium gives publishers the ability to basically understand exactly what they're paying for. So you mentioned you were making more money with it. That's pretty
Yeah.
much a universal rule. It's kind of impossible the way that we've built premium, which it's a little bit complicated the way that we explain it because we use like credits will automatically tier somebody down in terms of the costs and stuff like that so
Yeah.
that they never lose money on it. But the realistic thing is whenever we know that someone will make more money because they have access to these direct ad deals, we offer them a chance to participate in that. So
Yeah.
basically, they're paying for the cost of having a sales guy go out and do those deals, knowing ahead of time that those deals are already done and paid for. So that's what premium is.
That was a good explanation. I now understand exactly what premium is. Brilliant. So just to actually wrap the call up, that was absolutely brilliant. For those of you who have any questions in particular that you'd like to fire at Tyler, you could either do that over on the Ezoic YouTube channel, or I'm sure he'll leave any contact details below this video, or of course in the comment section, you can ask some questions and I'll get in touch with him and pass that over. But just to wrap it up, Tyler, what are the plans that Ezoic have for the future? Some of the either features, benefits, anything that you're bringing to the table for the coming years?
Sure. So first I'll mention, and people always say I'm crazy for this, but if someone has a question or they, I'm a big fan of honesty and transparency. I think, one of the things that bothers me the most is I think we don't have the reputation that we should have for being such a transparent organization. We don't do contracts. We don't lock people into stuff. We allow people to split test. We give everyone access to the platform. But I think the general complexity of what we offer in general needs to be easier to use. And for that reason, I think people have had difficulty before either understanding who we are and what we do, or even using the technology in general. And that's something we have to get better at. So in that spirit, I always give people my email address. So if there's something that I've said, you're like, that's not been my experience, Tyler, or I have other questions, you can email me at tylerbishop@ezoic.com, tylerbishop@ezoic.com. And I'd be more than happy to try to answer your question or put you in touch with somebody that can. That being said, in terms of the roadmap for what you can expect from Ezoic moving forward, is number one is we've got to make it easier to use. So I would say that we have a bit of a Manhattan project internally just to make every step of the process easier, whether that's signing up or, just using all the different tools and things like that we provide. Number two, I would say is we are still working hard on things in the world of SEO. So we dislike how non-objective things are. I gained 2,000 backlinks. Cool. Is that good or bad? Can you prove it?
Of course.
And so we're trying to provide actual mechanisms that will give publishers real objective information and actionable things that they can do that will improve SEO. And it's a very hard thing to do, but we do have a couple things coming soon that I think publishers will be excited about and should take advantage of. And then the second is video. So I think, you're a great testament to this. Video is something that publishers can definitely benefit from. And there's a lot of green grass in that realm. But I think a lot of publishers struggle with how to get started or even how to make it worthwhile. And so we've got both a video platform, meaning a way for publishers to get their videos listed in search and create video content that makes it easy to have their video index. 20% of search results are video, and largely they're coming from YouTube, but they don't have to. There's no precedent that Google gives to YouTube over other videos.
Yeah.
There's a court filing, I think, that says they can't. So we want to help publishers take advantage of that. And so we've got some of that in basically going through beta now, and some other tools in the future that should make video creation just generally easier. And monetizing all of that is always the core piece of the platform too.
Okay, well, I guess we'll wrap it up from there. Thank you for coming on today. You've given us a whole wealth of information. Many of you watching, I'm sure that it's answered most of your questions that you may have had. But as Tyler said, if you do have any more, then get in touch. And of course, leave a like on this video if you did enjoy it.
Leon, thanks again, man. I really appreciate having me on, and it's been fun. Like I said, if people have more questions, let me know. If they leave comments, I'm sure you'll get in touch, and I'd be more than happy to connect and provide any information I can. Thanks again, man.
Amazing.